Right, video 4. In this one, we're going to mainly have the homunculus, but a tiny bit left on the stroke that I haven't mentioned yet. Because of the general crossing over of information in your corpus callosum, any area of the brain that would have a stroke, let's say you were to have a stroke on the right hand side, it would affect the left hand side of your body because of that crossing over in the corpus callosum. So just that little bit of information. So if you had a paralysis of the right arm, that would indicate that the stroke was on the left hand side. Just a little extra that I didn't do with the stroke earlier. Right, there's something called a cortical homunculus. Now, that's not a real thing, not at all. It's an artist's interpretation of how often nerve endings are represented, how often those nerve connections are represented. And there are two different homunculi. That's the for information in and information out. So your motor homunculus and the sensory homunculus. So let me show you what they're looking like. So literally, how do we know this information? I'll get to that with that horrific information of let's stimulate here, let's stimulate there, and let a patient report to you what they're feeling or what is being moved if a little electric stimulation is happening to this or that part of the brain. What you see here already on the right hand side is the somatosensory, as in where do you have most feeling. Now, this picture may be a bit distorted as a normal human being. The face, particularly the lips, having loads of nerve endings, fingers and hands. I'll get to the genitalia region a little bit later on. However, the motor, that is where you've got most movement, gestures of the face, movement of the tongue to be able to produce the sounds that we can. And speech, complex hand movements, fine finger movement, that is very, very dense in nerve endings here. And how do we know? If you want to do a little bit of extra background knowledge as to where did you have human volunteers that could just have their brains investigated and probed and poked on, I will leave you to figure out what's been done during the Second World War. You might want to start your research with Kaiser Wilhelm Institute for Brain Research. That's not on your syllabus. It's just, again, whetting your appetite and food for thought as to what has been done. Anyway, we've got what we've got. This is an extra picture just for you to have different ideas as to where what movements or what sensory information we know of. This picture, I like him, but it's a polite version. This is a polite version that you'd put in a textbook for young children to explore. I've got a different version later on. So this would be giving you information about what sensory information goes into your body. If you've ever watched young children, I know somebody in class who does that for a lot of their time. The information that we get from touching something with lips and mouth, young children will try to explore something where they've got most nerve endings. So stuff just going into their mouths and being felt there. Obviously the choking hazard, careful of that, but that they're doing that's just to get more information. So tongue, lips, fingers and genitalia have got high sensitivity, as in a density of neurons, and obviously the corresponding brain areas are larger. Now, this is a not so polite version. This is not what's in your textbook, but it's kind of probably a bit more appropriate to where you have got your extra nerve endings. You've got a male version and a female version along the brain here. Just food for thought and ideas that you're not getting not only the young children's friendly version. I hope this picture is self-explanatory with regard to the research that's being done into what areas are being stimulated and what areas of the brain are corresponding. Just research that can be done, just for you as food for thought. Moving over from the sensory homunculus that you've got on the left there with where you're feeling most, to the motor, where can we move best, where we get most nerve endings that do that fine motor control. And yes, you've got the whole body represented on both, but for the motor homunculus, the hand movement, the dexterity that we have got as humans, that's immense. Also, movement of all areas associated with speech and generally the face, facial gestures, smiling, frowning, that is dominant in the sort of facial muscles there. What have we got? Enlarged hands and face. But just remember that that is just artists doing their thing. Right, next video is going to be on language and speech.